People come to this channel for stories that look ordinary at first. Family gatherings, polite smiles, moments everyone claps for. Right up until something small goes wrong and never goes back. This is one of those stories. I didn't know anything was wrong when my daughter stood up with a velvet box in her hands and asked everyone to look at me. The room smelled like baked ham and lemon polish. Chairs scraped closer. Phones came up. Someone laughed and said this was overdue. I remember thinking it felt strange to be the center of attention at my age, but I smiled anyway. That's what mothers do. The lid lifted. Green stone caught the light. Heavy, polished, expensive in a quiet way. Applause filled the room before I could speak. My daughter stepped closer and slid the bracelet onto my wrist herself, adjusting it with careful fingers. Too careful. Her smile held, but her eyes didn't linger. "Just wear it carefully," she murmured, low enough that no one else reacted. I laughed because everyone was watching. Cameras flashed. Someone told me it suited me. I thanked her. I hugged her. I didn't take the bracelet off. My name is Isabel Moore, 71 years old. That night, after the dishes were stacked and the house went quiet, I sat on the edge of my bed and studied my wrist. The bracelet felt heavier than it had earlier. I told myself that was imagination, old habits, too much thinking. My phone buzzed. No name, no number. One line on a blank screen. "Get rid of it immediately or you'll regret it." I read it twice, then again, slower. The bracelet rested against my skin, cool and solid, exactly where my daughter had placed it. I didn't reply. I didn't sleep either. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. Names, events, and details have been crafted for storytelling purposes, even when they feel uncomfortably familiar. Morning came with the same bracelet on my wrist, and the same message burned into my thoughts. I stood in the kitchen holding my phone, already rehearsing what I would do next, convinced I was about to make the responsible choice. The bracelet was still on my wrist when I poured my coffee. I hadn't put it on again. I hadn't taken it off either. It sat there like it had decided something for me. I turned my arm slowly, watching the stone catch the light. Not flashy, not sentimental, practical. That should have comforted me. It didn't. Later that morning, my daughter called. Her voice was bright, almost rehearsed. "You like it, right?" I told her it was beautiful. That part was true. There was a pause on the line. Not long enough to be obvious, long enough to notice. "You don't have to wear it every day," she added quickly. "Just keep it safe." Safe from what didn't need to be said. My fingers tightened around the mug. I asked where it came from, not accusatory, casual. The way you ask when you're already bracing for a half answer. "An estate thing," she replied. "It's complicated." That word again, complicated. She'd used it at dinner when someone asked about the cost. She'd used it when I joked about whether I should insure it. I remembered the envelope she slipped onto the counter before she left. Thin, official-looking. I hadn't opened it yet. I set my coffee down and slid a finger under the flap. Insurance language. Valuation terms. My name typed neatly where a signature should have been. I hadn't signed anything. My phone buzzed again. Same number as the night before. "It isn't yours in the way you think." I stared at the screen. No threat this time, no demand, just that. When I called back, it went straight to nothing. No voicemail, no ring. By afternoon, I had convinced myself I was being dramatic. 71 years of handling other people's problems had trained me well. I folded the papers, placed them back in the envelope, and told myself, Families don't set traps for each other. They make mistakes. They forget details. They assume mothers will understand. I slipped the envelope into my purse, the bracelet pressed against my skin when I did. That evening, as I set my purse by the door, I noticed the papers had shifted. One page stuck out, a line I hadn't seen before. Responsible party upon transfer. My name sat underneath it, printed clean and final, as if I had already agreed. The second message came while I was standing at the kitchen counter, the envelope still open beside me, the bracelet resting against my pulse like it belonged there. This one didn't shout. It didn't threaten. It read like someone who had already learned the cost. I didn't listen the first time. I thought I could manage it. I was wrong. I sat down slowly, the chair scraping louder than it should have. My phone vibrated again before I could decide whether to respond. I lost my house, my savings. People I trusted stopped returning my calls. A pause. Then one more line. It doesn't destroy you all at once. It waits until your name is the only one left on the paperwork. I typed back that they had the wrong person, that I was just a mother who received a gift. The words felt thin, even as I sent them. The reply came almost immediately. That's who it's for. I tried calling. The screen stayed blank. No ringing, no voicemail. Just silence that felt intentional. I paced the length of the room, phone in my hand, bracelet knocking softly against bone. My mind ran through possibilities. A scam, a bitter relative, someone trying to scare an old woman into giving up something valuable. But scammers didn't talk about loss like that. They didn't warn you away. Another message appeared. When she gave it to me, she said it would be easier if I handled it. My breath caught. That phrasing. Handled it. The same one my daughter had used the night before when she hugged me goodbye. I leaned against the counter until the cold steadied me. What do you want? I typed. The answer took longer this time. I want you to not do what I did. That was when it shifted for me. Extortion asks for something. This didn't ask. It pointed. I looked down at my wrist, at the careful fit, at how naturally it had been placed there. The message appeared one last time. She didn't pick you by accident. I didn't reply again. I didn't need to. By nightfall, I had already decided who I was going to give the bracelet to next. I told myself I was doing the sensible thing, the quiet thing, the kind of thing mothers do when they see trouble forming and decide to step in before it spreads. By late afternoon, I was driving across town with the bracelet wrapped in a handkerchief, tucked into my purse like something fragile instead of dangerous. My daughter had mentioned his name often enough over the years, always with the same tone. Calm, reassured. This is who fixes things. He opened the door after the second knock. Tall, polite, already distracted. I held out the handkerchief without sitting down. This was given to me last night. I think it belongs back with you. His eyes dropped to my hand. No surprise, no questions. It's better this way, I added, filling the silence before it turned awkward. I don't want misunderstandings. The bracelet disappeared into his palm, heavy enough that he adjusted his grip. You did the right thing, he said, already stepping back. The door closed before I could respond. The relief came fast, too fast, like a pressure release without confirmation. On the drive home, I didn't call my daughter. I imagined how that conversation would go. Her insisting I was overreacting. Me apologizing for making a fuss. The familiar shape of it all settled into place. Peace, even if it felt thin. My phone buzzed at a stoplight. Same number, one sentence. You gave it to the wrong person. I pulled over without signaling, hands tight on the wheel. The message stayed on the screen, unchanged, like it didn't need emphasis. I typed back that the bracelet was no longer my concern, that it had been returned to someone capable. Someone responsible. The response came slower this time. That's what I thought too. I sat there longer than I meant to, engine running, the weight of the purse on the seat beside me suddenly unfamiliar without the bracelet inside. At home, I set the purse down and waited for the calm to return. It didn't. The house felt exactly the same, but something had shifted underneath it. By evening, I realized I hadn't contained anything at all. I had simply passed it along, trusting the wrong hands to close the door behind me. The silence didn't arrive all at once. It crept in, spaced between unanswered calls, and messages marked read but never returned. By the third day, I stopped pretending it was coincidence. When she finally called, her voice sounded the same. That was the part that unsettled me most. No strain, no hesitation, just familiar warmth, carefully measured. I heard you stopped by, she said. Not a question. I wanted to make sure everything was settled. A short breath on the line. Controlled. You didn't need to do that. I told her I was trying to help, that I'd been worried. The word worried landed poorly. You always do this, she replied. You imagine problems that aren't there. I waited. She didn't fill the space. The bracelet came with paperwork, I said. My name was already on it. That's normal, she said quickly. Too quickly. You're reading it wrong. I mentioned the message, not the full wording, just enough to see how she'd react. Silence again. Longer this time. Why are you listening to strangers? Her tone shifted, sharpened at the edges. Anyone can send a text. I reminded her that someone had warned me to give it back, that I had done exactly that. Her voice lowered. I told you not to get involved. Involved. As if I had wandered into something uninvited. This isn't your responsibility, she continued. I have people for this. You don't need to fix it. I thought about how easily she said that. How practiced it sounded. Like she'd rehearsed it for someone else first. I just wanted to understand, I said. That's the problem, she replied. You don't need to. The call ended shortly after. No goodbye, no reassurance. Just a clean break, like a door closed from the other side. Later that night, I replayed the conversation in my head. Not the words, but the timing, the way she redirected, the way every explanation moved me further from the center of the story. By morning, I understood something I hadn't allowed myself to consider before. She wasn't confused. She was deciding how much of the truth I was allowed to carry. What would you feel if you realized the danger was never random? It was assigned. I stopped looking for reassurance and started looking for proof. The paperwork my daughter had brushed off as normal didn't read that way once I slowed down. Every page pointed in the same direction. Transfer clauses, liability language, dates that lined up too neatly with her recent decisions. This wasn't an inheritance. It was a handoff. I called the insurance office listed on the valuation page. I didn't introduce myself as confused or concerned. I introduced myself as responsible. The woman on the line hesitated when I gave my name. Papers shuffled. Her voice dropped. That account was flagged, she said. There was an attempt to remove the original holder. Remove. Not update. Not revise. I asked when that attempt had been made. 6 months ago, she replied. It didn't clear. I thanked her and hung up before she could ask why a woman my age was suddenly asking the right questions. I sat at the kitchen table with the documents spread out, the quiet pressing in. There it was in plain language. If the bracelet changed hands, so did the exposure. Legal responsibility, financial fallout, everything my daughter had been trying to outrun. Another message came through while I was reading. She tried to pass it to me first. I didn't ask who they were anymore. She said you'd understand, that you'd know how to handle it. Handle it. Again. I thought about all the times I had stepped in for her over the years. School calls, late payments, apologies she didn't want to make herself. I had always been good at absorbing consequences quietly. That's when it settled in, heavy and undeniable. She hadn't panicked when she gave me the bracelet. She had relaxed. She didn't give me something precious. She gave me something dangerous. Because I was the one person she trusted to carry it without asking too many questions. I gathered the papers into a neat stack. My hands were steady, calmer than they had been all week. The truth didn't make me angry. It made me very clear about what had to happen next. How many people have to be sacrificed before a pattern becomes undeniable? The call came after midnight. No greeting, no introduction. Just a voice that sounded tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. I didn't think you'd answer. I didn't think you'd call, I replied, keeping my voice even. But you know more than you've told me. A breath on the other end. Slow, measured. I wasn't the first person she tried. The voice said, I was just the first who didn't have children. That landed harder than anything else so far. She said it would be easier if I handled it, they continued, that I had fewer attachments. When it started going bad, she backed away, quietly, like it was always my problem. I leaned against the counter, the documents spread in front of me like evidence in a trial that had been waiting years for the right witness. There were others, the voice went on. Parents, aunts, an uncle who didn't ask questions, people who were supposed to be safe. Safe. The word felt twisted now. They all thought they were helping, I said. They all thought they were protecting someone. Yes, the voice answered. That's why it works. I asked how they got out. Another pause, longer this time. I didn't, they said. I lost my house. I lost friends who didn't want to be attached to the fallout. What I didn't lose was my name. I walked away before that happened. I thought about the way my daughter had gone quiet, about how calm she'd sounded once the bracelet was no longer in my possession. She's done this before, I said. She's very good at it, the voice replied. You're the first one who stayed long enough to notice. The line went dead after that. No warning, no goodbye. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the steady sound of a house that still belonged to me. By then, I understood the truth clearly. This wasn't a mistake that needed fixing. It was a system. And systems only stop when someone refuses to carry them anymore. What happens when a child realizes their parent finally understands? She didn't invite me in. She stepped aside, eyes already scanning the hallway behind me, as if the house itself might overhear. I stayed standing. So did she. That felt important. You shouldn't be here, she started, voice low, controlled, the same tone she used when she wanted something to end before it became inconvenient. I'm not here to argue, I told her. I'm here because I know. Her mouth tightened. Not surprise, recognition. She crossed her arms, a gesture I'd seen since she was small, defensive but familiar. You think you know, she corrected. I know you tried to move the liability, I replied. I know it didn't clear. I know you needed someone the paperwork would stick to. Her breath caught, just slightly. Enough. This isn't how it sounds, she said quickly. It was supposed to be temporary. Temporary for who? She looked away then, just for a moment. That was the closest thing to an answer I needed. I didn't think you'd keep it, she said. The words came out softer than I expected. I thought you'd just handle it. Handle it. The phrase settled between us, heavy with history. So you gave it to me, I said. Not because you trusted me, because you needed distance. Her eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. I was scared. Everything was closing in. I didn't know what else to do. I nodded once. You knew exactly what to do. That landed. Her shoulders dropped, the performance cracking at the edges. I never meant for you to get hurt, she whispered. But you meant for me to carry it, I replied. You counted on that. Silence stretched, not hostile, exposed. I'm your mother, I continued, not your exit strategy. She opened her mouth, then closed it. There was nothing left to reframe. I took a step back toward the door. This ends with me. Her head lifted sharply. What does that mean? It means you don't get to hide behind me anymore. I left before she could find the words she'd practiced for years. What does winning look like when you refuse to destroy anyone, but refuse to disappear? I didn't announce what I was about to do. I didn't warn her. I learned a long time ago that warnings only give people time to rearrange the story. The attorney's office was quiet when I arrived. I placed the folder on the table and slid it forward page by page. Transfer clauses, the failed removal attempt, the insurance flags, my name where consent was assumed. This is not my obligation, I said. It was never meant to be. The attorney read without interruption. When he looked up, his expression had shifted from courtesy to precision. We can correct the record, he said, publicly and legally. Do it, I replied. All of it. By the end of the week, the documentation was filed. My name was removed. The responsibility returned to the person who initiated the transfer. There was no commentary attached, no personal statements, just facts placed where they belonged. My phone rang that night. I let it ring once, twice, then I answered. You didn't have to do this, she said. Her voice wasn't angry. It was smaller than that. I did, I replied, because it was mine to undo. They're asking questions, she said. People I trusted. They should, I said. So should you. A pause. Then, softer. You've ruined everything. I leaned back in my chair, the house quiet around me. No, I said. I returned it. The call ended without a goodbye. Over the next few days, messages came from people I hadn't heard from in years. Short notes, neutral tones, the kind that say, we see what happened, without asking you to explain it. Her circle tightened. Invitations stopped. Conversations shortened. Control slipped where it had once been effortless. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. I had chosen something irreversible. Not punishment, not spectacle. I chose to stop absorbing consequences that were never meant to be mine. And that choice held. How do you walk away from someone you love without walking away from yourself? I didn't move away. I didn't change my number. I didn't give explanations to anyone who wasn't owed one. People assumed silence meant reconciliation. It didn't. It meant I was done negotiating reality. When my daughter called weeks later, her voice sounded careful, as if tone alone could reopen doors. I just want things to feel normal again. Normal had always meant me smoothing edges, absorbing damage, taking responsibility so she didn't have to. I'm not reopening this, I said. Not sharp, not cold, final. She tried once more. You could have handled it differently. I did, I replied. This time, I handled myself. The line went quiet. That was the last conversation we had. I still go to the same grocery store. I still meet friends for coffee. When people mention her name, I don't correct them or defend her. I don't offer context. The truth doesn't need help standing up. The bracelet is gone. Not sold, not hidden. It sits exactly where responsibility belongs now, documented and accounted for. No longer tied to my name or my life. I don't think about it anymore. That tells me everything I need to know. Here's what I learned, and I'll say it plainly, because someone listening needs to hear it without poetry. Love does not require you to carry consequences someone else chose. Age does not mean obligation. Family does not mean silence. If you are the person everyone leans on, ask yourself who catches you when you finally step aside. The answer might be uncomfortable. It might also be freeing. I didn't lose my daughter that year. I lost the version of myself who believed love meant absorbing damage meant for someone else. If this story sounds familiar, share your thoughts. Not because you need permission, but because naming the pattern is how it stops.